So welcome everyone, whether you're tuning in from Shipley, from Airedale, from Bradford or even beyond, it's great to have you with us online this morning. We are City Valley Church. We normally meet in two locations, in City Valley Shipley and City Valley Airedale, but we've also got a huge heart to reach other locations such as Bradford City Centre. Our vision is to be a church that is loving Jesus, growing together and reaching Yorkshire and the nations. If you're new tuning in and you'd like to receive our weekly news email or our online activities for children and youth, then you can contact us through our church website. So welcome everyone, enjoy this time together and let's be encouraged as we celebrate Jesus together.
Good morning,
Hello.
City Valley.
Good morning,
Hello,
good
everyone. So great to be able to lead you guys in worship this morning. Looking forward to it. I just wanted to share, I guess, the last few weeks, the psalm that has really been on my heart and that I've been meditating on is Psalm 27. So I want to read that for you and then just share just briefly some thoughts about, the songs we've chosen this morning in relation to it. So Psalm 27. From verse 4, it says, "One thing I ask from the Lord, this alone do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze on the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple. For in the day of trouble he will keep me safe in his dwelling. He will hide me in the shelter of his sacred tent and set me high upon a rock." I guess the thing that God's really been speaking to me about over this time is that, a lot of people, religious people, see the church building as the sacred place, as that's the place where you go to worship God. And in the times of Israel, the temple was the sacred place that's where they went to worship. And yet we know that it's not about the building, it's not about where you meet, it's about where the presence of God is, and that in our houses all across the UK there are Christians everywhere, every day. They're worshipping, in their own homes and just seeking the presence of God. And we can do that. We can run to him in the midst of everything that's going on around us, the chaos of the world. We can go and we can just hide in that place. And Anthony East, we're doing a prayer Zoom with a few guys, and he just said he really feels like God's calling us to a time of deepening the wells, and it just really struck me that's it. That's exactly what we're doing over this time as Christians, where God's calling us just to deepen the foundations, dig deep into him. The deeper the well, the better the living water, the more of the supply of it. And so that's what these songs are about, is just drawing into him, into his presence, just dwelling in peace. We've been listening to the Bethel album Peace pretty much on repeat in our house constantly. And so some of these songs are from that album as well. And hope you enjoy. Bless you all. Here we go. How lovely is your dwelling place, O Lord Almighty, for my soul longs and even faints for you. For here my heart is satisfied within your presence. I sing beneath the shadow of your wings. Better is one day in your courts, better is one day in your house, better is one day in your courts and thousands elsewhere. Better is one day in your courts, better is one day in your house, better is one day in your courts and thousands elsewhere. Sing it again, better. Better is one day in your courts, better Better is one day in your courts. Better is one day in your house. Better is one day in your courts than thousands elsewhere. Thousands elsewhere. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Jesus. And I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. And I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. You unravel me with a melody. You surround me with a song of deliverance from my enemies, till all my fears are gone. And I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. From my mother's womb, you have chosen me. Love has called my name, and I've been born again into a family. Your blood flows through my veins. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I am a child of God.
This is how I fight my battles. This is how I fight my battles. This is how I fight my battles. This is how. This is how I fight my battles. This is how I fight my battles. This is how I fight my battles. This is how. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. This is how I fight my battles. This is how I fight my battles. This is how I fight my battles. This is how. This is how I fight my battles. This is how I fight my battles. This is how I fight my battles.
This is how. This is how I fight my battles. This is how I fight my battles. This is how I fight my battles. This is how.
It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded by you. This is how I fight my battle. This is how I fight my battles. This is how I fight my battles. This is how you split the sea so I could walk right through it. My fears are drowned in perfect love. You rescued me so I could stand and say I am a child of God. Sing it again. You split the sea so I could walk right through it. My fears are drowned in perfect love. You rescued me so I could stand and say I am a child of God. I am a child of God. I am a child of God. Thank you,
I love you, Lord. Oh, your mercy never fails me. All my days I've been held in your hands. From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, I will sing of the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire. In darkest nights, you are close like no other. I've known you as a father. I've known you as a friend. I have lived in the goodness of God. And all my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so good. Every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. Goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. When my life laid down, I'm surrendered now. Give you everything. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. When my life laid down, I surrender now. I give you everything. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your
goodness.
Your goodness is running after me again. Your goodness is running after me. God, you're so good. God, you're so good. God, you're so good. You're so good to me.
Sing it again, God.
God, you're so good. God, you're so good. God, you're so good. You're so good to me. I am blessed, I am called, I am healed, I am whole, I am saved in Jesus' name. Highly favored, anointed, filled with your power for the glory of Jesus' name. I am blessed, I am called, I am healed, I am whole, I am saved in Jesus' name. Highly favored, anointed, filled with your power for the glory of Jesus' name. God, you're so good. God, you're so good. God, you're so good. You're so good to me.
Thank you, Lord. Bless you all, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Great to be with you. Enjoy the message this morning, and just a love from the Krivans to everyone out there and from City Valley. Bless you. Bye-bye.
Well, hello. It is good to be together like this. Now, I'm sure many of you are missing some of your favourite places to be. You know, the pinnacle of God's creation. For me, that Shipley Clock Tower. It would normally be on my walk to the church office every morning, and I'm missing it. But I'm really glad I get to have it here in my living room. Well, we are continuing our new series we're calling Feasting on God's Word and Breaking the Silence. And this morning, I want to share with you how God's been leading me to feast on the Psalms over the last few weeks. Last week, Gaynor mentioned how God has been speaking to her recently about us as a whole church, allowing our protective boundaries we put around our hearts to come down, letting Jesus in, beckoning in his transforming power, and allowing our roots to go deeper in his truth and love. I'm just going to share a bit of how God's been doing that in me over the last few weeks and share with you from Psalm 63. You know, when I get a bit lost in my emotions and thoughts, I find the Psalms such a helpful place to be. I've heard people refer to the Psalms as the language of our hearts, and I really do believe this is a language we all need. They speak into the very rawness and reality of our emotions. They help to validate what it is that we feel. You know, it's okay to feel disorientated. I'm not the only one who's grieving or angry. God cares that I'm anxious. He wants to know that I'm feeling thankful. But also, they have to bring perspective. And as a result, the Psalms often lead us into a place of worship and thankfulness. They help us to tune in, listen to our hearts, what it is we're really feeling. And they help us to take these emotions to Jesus and to hear and receive his truth, his perspective, and his love. You know, at the moment, we no longer have the usual places we can go to hide or escape from our emotions. You know, it might be the office, the pub, going to the gym, a bit of retail therapy, dare I even say at the church. But let's not deny ourselves or try to cover up or disengage with our emotions during this time. The more we talk to God, the more we allow these barriers around our heart to come down, the more his Spirit comes, and the more we will find his love, peace, and hope in his words. And before we read Psalm 63, I just want to place some of these verses in a little bit of context. Here we find David in the desert, in a wilderness place. We don't know exactly what's caused this, but most commentators agree that this was probably written while David was fleeing from Absalom, David's own son, who was plotting to overthrow him and take the throne from his father. However, unlike many of the Psalms written into a dire situation, Psalm 63 is overflowing with thanksgiving rather than lament and petition. So this is Psalm 63. You, God, are my God. Earnestly I seek you. I thirst for you. My whole being longs for you. In a dry and parched land where there is no water. I have seen you in the sanctuary and beheld your power and your glory, because your love is better than life. My lips will glorify you. I will praise you as long as I live, and in your name I will lift up my hands. I will be fully satisfied, as with the richest of foods. With singing, my mouth will praise you. On my bed I remember you. I think of you through the watches of the night, because you are my help. I sing in the shadow of your wings. I cling to you. Your right hand upholds me. You know, right from the start, we see David worshipping and looking to God. You know, David knows he's not abandoned, even whilst he's isolated and alone in a desert place. With confidence, he can say, God, you are my God. Another translation puts it like this: you are my God, I worship you. And I find this so challenging. David's starting place here is God, God's covenantal relationship with him. You know, David is choosing to put his feet on the promise-keeping God that is the rock eternal, not to place them on himself. David reminds himself that God knows him, that David is in relationship with the living God. David's God knows David by name. As I read this, I realized during this crisis, this hasn't always been my starting place. If I'm honest, I hadn't started with God. Instead, I'd started with myself. You know, in the first few weeks, I filled my time thinking and working out how was I going to overcome all these new obstacles and challenges. I spent time catching up with each day's news updates, government briefings, spending my evenings in online meetings. My thought life was filled with thinking about different scenarios, different options, problem solving. I made it all about me, all about what I could do, what I needed to do. And I think what all of us will need to do at times is come to a place where we read David was. God, you are my God. If there's one thing I want you to hear today, it's exactly this. And you might just want to express this in your own heart right now. God, you are my God. I choose to worship you. Interestingly, Psalm 63 was written at a time when David was cut off from his worship community, cut off from his friends and family. And Spurgeon, the theologian, writes this: David did not leave off singing because he was in the wilderness. Neither did he in slovenly idleness go on repeating psalms intended for other occasions, but he carefully made his worship suitable to his circumstances and presented to his God a wilderness hymn. And I wonder today, what does it look like for you to express the song of your heart during this crisis? Well, let's read how David did it. And in these verses we read, we see that David does two things. Firstly, he thirsts for God. And secondly, he feasts on God. Now we see David thirsting for God. Earnestly I seek you. My soul thirsts for you. My body longs for you in a dry and weary land where there is no water. It's interesting, isn't it? Even David's physical surroundings, the things he was cut off from, the things he could no longer access, directed him and pointed him to his greater need, his need for God. I found this so helpful. It wasn't until a couple of weeks into this lockdown season that I realized my heart was thirsting for all the wrong things. Without realizing it at the time, what my heart was thirsting for was a sense of achievement, was job satisfaction, longing just to keep myself busy, thirsting for control. But as I listened to my heart, I gradually began to hear what my heart really needed, what it really longed for. What I needed wasn't busyness, but it was love, reassurance, and to surrender control to God. In an isolated and lonely land, God, I long for your friendship. In these times of restriction and unknowns, God, I earnestly want to seek you, want to know that you are in control. It's a good question to ask yourself today. What is your heart thirsting for? We then see David feasting on God. He says, your love is better than life. My lips will glorify you. I will praise you as long as I live. My soul will be satisfied as with the richest of foods. In my sleepless nights, I remember you and I think of you. You are my help. I will sing in the shadow of your wings. My soul clings to you. Your right hand upholds me. David looks beyond his physical surroundings, his physical hunger, his isolation, and he finds revelation that God is enough, that God satisfies, that God is better than life itself. He feasts. I wanted and needed this kind of satisfaction. I wasn't finding it within myself or through anything I could do. And if I'm honest, God got my attention at your love is better than life. Gradually, my heart began to realize that in this season, Jesus' love and presence is what is going to make all the difference. I began to choose time to feast on God's truth, receiving more and more of his love for me. I took time to worship him. I began choosing him over other things. The Message translation puts it as this. So here I am in the place of worship, eyes open, drinking in your strength and glory. In your generous love, I am living life at last. I don't know if you've seen or read the story of Morgan Spurlock, better known through the film Super Size Me. It tells a story of a fit and healthy 32-year-old American who made himself the center of an experiment where he could only eat items off the McDonald's menu for a whole month. 3 meals a day, 7 days a week for a whole month. During that time, Morgan experienced mood swings. He gained almost 2 stone in weight, recorded loss of energy, experienced depression, withdrawal headaches, heart palpitations, loss of sexual drive. The list goes on. It took him 14 months to lose the weight he gained in just 1 month. He went from being a healthy guy to being a medical concern. What we thirst for and what we feast on, it really matters. It matters physically, but even more so, it matters spiritually and for the health of our heart and our soul. As we thirst for and feast on Jesus, as we make time for him, make time to enjoy his presence, receive his love, instead of striving and stress, instead of fear and anxiety, we discover his peace, his love that's satisfied. Freedom, God's burden is light, his yoke is easy. We find rest in the joy of knowing we're known by him. He is our help. David shows us that God is worshipped and honoured, both when we thirst for him and when we feast on him. So what is your heart thirsting for today? And what are you choosing to feast on during this season? In order for our promise-keeping God to be our starting place, we need to keep finding time where we can be still, where we can thirst and feast on him. I realized I found myself praying and more recently, God, let your voice be the loudest voice. Above all other competing voices, let us hear your voice the loudest. God, we want to hear you above everything and everyone else. And in some ways, there's nothing wrong with that prayer, but it's I've realised at times, if I'm not careful in the busyness of life, there's actually an idleness in me where I keep finding false comfort and misplaced worth. I'm finding myself repenting more and more of an idleness in my relationship with Jesus, which is disguised as a holy busyness. I can no longer rely on church meetings and other people to feast on Jesus for me. I've got to take responsibility for this myself. I have to feed myself. I'm in danger of allowing myself to live such a busy and noisy life, such a life that's so full that I'm asking God to shout louder and louder just so I'm in with a chance of hearing him. And at times, my idleness stops me from accepting that this is completely the wrong way around. I want, and I'm beginning to find more my prayer life being, God, nothing is more important than you. Your love is better than life. I'm switching off my phone. I'm choosing you. I'm seeking silence and solitude. I'm going for a walk. I want to be still so that I can hear your whisper, so I can tune into your voice alone, so I can receive your love and enjoy your presence. I sense for some of us this morning, God will be asking us to put some unhelpful and unhealthy things down in this season, as well as asking us to pick up him for our own self. Even in the lockdown life, it might look busier for you as it did before, but we still need to make time to listen to our hearts, engage with our emotions, and take them to Jesus. This is so, so important. So why don't you take time after this to listen to your heart, take down the barriers, and allow Jesus in. If you can't do this right now, make time this afternoon, make time this evening, this week, make time. You may want to listen to that worship song, Hungry, by Catherine Scott, or spend time feasting for yourself on Psalm 63 or Psalm 118. That's another really great one. And take this to your Connect group. Share with others how God has been speaking to you as you feast on his words. And let's continue to pray. Let's continue to pray for each other, for our nation, for the government, for all the NHS doctors and nurses and carers on the frontline staff. But I'm just going to finish with the Lord's Prayer. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread. Forgive us our sins as we forgive those who sin against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For yours is the power, the kingdom, and the majesty forever and ever. Amen.